This week's episode of Fearless Flight Live with my trusty partners in crime here, Dieter Staudinger, Diane Hansen, and Eric Larson, back with you this week to talk about, as you know, well, if you've been with us before, talk about people or people who have a fear of flying, people who know somebody who has a fear of flying, and maybe you would just want to talk about aviation. We got a fun night here. We got some wide and varied topics, and hopefully there'll be a little bit of something for everybody in there. The first thing came from one of our friends of Fearless Flight, Sue Wiley, who used to attend the classes with us, a former fearful flyer, and she came she put this sent this notice to me. And let me go over and get this. So I'm going to share my screen, and we need a lot of competence on Ron's part here, which is really stretching my.
Of course, it's never too early for technical difficulties.
Yeah, exactly. Now we got this under control, I think. All right, as long as I could get it to pop up. And here we go. Voila, you should be seeing that now.
Yes, sir.
And what we wanted to
People
do
are
is
seeing our chat, Teams chat. I mean, there's nothing to hide, but
oh, it's not showing the screen.
we will get to that later because we do have a new date for the Cleared for Takeoff 301, the flight class, coming up in Burbank. But I think you wanted that a little bit later in the show.
No, it's just a matter of, it cheated me. That's what it did. That's step one. We'll try it again. All right. Here we go. Should see the two anchors there.
Yep.
And the headline.
Yep.
Wow.
Okay. Plane runs out of fuel after taxiing New York runway for 6 hours without flying anywhere. Okay, Eric, what are they trying to get people to buy into?
Boy, if it just been a couple of minutes earlier, they would have taken off, flown for 2 minutes, run out of gas, and gone right into Jamaica Bay, and that would have been it. That was really close.
Yeah, and so I just couldn't resist putting this up there to help you not buy into the headlines, because, first of all, you don't taxi on the runway for 6 hours because there's people using that sucker. I have no idea what the story is behind this. Maybe we can find out this week sometime, but it's certainly nothing that would be newsworthy other than if it's a slow day in New York there. So we'll just take that with a grain of salt. And again, for 6 hours, if they kept everybody in the airplane for that, it's what did we decide? 20 grand per person? 27. That's right.
Per passenger.
Yeah.
Per person.
Yeah. So not likely that they did that, or at least kept the people on board there. So we'll just have to take a look at that. All right. So let's talk about. All right, next thing we want to do, and we'll invite Dieter back in here unless he's got somebody that he's working with. And what we want to talk about is the upcoming Clear for Takeoff 301 classes. They're both going to be in October. And if anybody remembers us talking about anything different, erase, because they're both in October.
Especially you, Tracy.
Oh yeah, Tracy and Stacy. I have not heard back from Stacy. Thanks, Tracy, for being so flexible. Yeah, exactly.
Flexible with your plans. That's what the airline says. Is anybody flexible with your plans?
Yes.
We're just teaching them how to be good airline passengers. Great. So here we go. I'll pump this up on the screen, and hopefully you're looking at the Clear for Takeoff 301 class. Fearless Flight Plan in Action. And I've had a number of people, both in Phoenix and LA, clamor for one more advanced class before we end the year. And so we were going to try for September. That was a little rushed. I got a lot more feedback that said, can you do it closer to the end? And it makes sense because people will have a little bit of a time to prepare if they fly in October to get ready for any holiday flights that they might be planning there. And plus, we can get the last bit of cheap fares, which turns out to be really true because just today, Southwest had a fare sale. And so if you are thinking about flying with us on either one of the classes, the Phoenix class in September or October 22nd, or the Burbank class in October 15th, it's a good time to go online and get your tickets because they're down to $69 here. You want to pop? Can you pop that Southwest thing up there, Dieter? I will stop.
You mean for our
The screenshot of the
flight
fares?
details?
Yeah, you know, the screenshot of the screenshot of the flight fares. Okay.
Actually, let me just share my screen and get everybody up to speed here.
And you notice we've been advertising $697. That's not going to happen. $397. That's not going to happen because we want as many people to do this as possible. So there, if you click on the link that Dieter's going to leave in the chat box there, you're going to get $200 off of that, and it's going to be $197. You can see in very small print there. We should.
So and what you can see here is when you scroll down all the way down on our 301 info page, you see the flight details, and you can actually click on them and it'll already show you. This is the one for the Burbank. There we go, and you can see the different flight details here as well. So that will make it a little bit easier for you. And like Ron said, we are definitely hoping that pushing the dates back a little bit will accommodate some of you that have asked for these flights, be a little bit later in the fall, and looking forward to flying with you.
Okay, let's talk about since we're talking about buying tickets on Southwest in particular. Let's take a look at they've changed their fare policy ever so slightly. They used to have the 3 fares, which was anytime, want to get away, and then the business fare. And the only one that had a refundable fare was the business fare, the anytime fare. And then if you were to buy a want to getaway fare and then decide that you didn't want to fly or couldn't fly or whatever, they would give you credit only. They would keep that up to 1 year from the time you purchased your ticket. Now they've added this want to getaway plus, and it is, yes, slightly more expensive, not much, but a little bit more expensive than their cheapest fare. But here's the beauty of this: transferable flight credit. And this is not even so much important for those of you who are planning to fly with us, because we don't want you going anywhere. We want you going with us on the airplane. But regardless, if something comes up in that, or you're flying Southwest on your own down the road, if you pay for the Want to Getaway Plus, you can transfer the credit to someone else, another person who has a Southwest Airlines Rapid Rewards account, which is their frequent flyer program. The other thing you can do, you can make a change to your itinerary in the same day. So let's say I was coming out of Burbank at 6 o'clock, and I had a meeting, and I got done at around noon, and they had a 4 o'clock. If there's seats on that earlier flight, I can change my reservation and go on that flight. I'm guessing, help me, Diane, I'm guessing you probably still have to be obligated to pay whatever the current fare is on that, right?
You may have to pay for the fare difference. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's a good question, because if you're able to make that same day change.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Yeah. But nonetheless, Before you were stuck, all you would have was the credit, or you'd have to wait for the later flight. So at least you have a little bit more of a choice now.
A bit more flexibility. Yeah, that's great.
And you can see here that you get 8 times more rapid rewards point. And here's a matrix that they put together here. Started with these are the things that everybody gets: credit and no change to cancel, 2 bags on every flight. And then you get down here, this is the transfer flight. This is the one to get away fare plus. And now you can do that. You can same day confirm change, and you can jump on the standby list for another flight if such flight becomes available. So the anytime fare and the business select are the ones where you can cancel and get a full refund. So if you want to do that, you'll do that as well. So but anyway, so keep that in mind when you're booking for our 301 class, because that may be to your advantage and may make it a little bit more tenable for you to take that flight with us. Because we want as many of you as we can to do that. So any comments or anything you guys want to add? I'm gonna move over here to the next item here. Okay.
Well, not in the comments here. So
okay. So we're going to have many of you who've watched the show have watched Tom Toka be our guest on here a couple times. He's has borne his soul to us, and if you've been following him at all, he's Tom in the Birds of a Feather group, and he has become a flying fool. He must be the mentorship from Wendy, because he and Wendy and from Burbank, the fireman, Oliver Fry. I flew with the 3 of them a year ago, June, as everything was just going to hell in a handbasket in the aviation industry. And so I promised those 3 people that I would fly with them, even as COVID was still raging. And all 3 of them flew. And Tom it was just a struggle for him. He just kept trying and trying and trying all the way up until earlier this year. And he came over here, and you may have heard the story before. He came over here, he had a success, and it was above and beyond his wildest dreams. He then spontaneously bought a ticket to Miami just to go down there because there were some thunderstorms forecast en route, and I mean literally just for his own proficiency. And he's been flying like crazy since that time. He's from Poland, and he had been trying for I think 8 or 10 or more years to get back and visit his family. And so he finally made it. He's been not once but twice now, and he just landed yesterday. And as a part of this is the universe always challenging you. You go overcome an obstacle, and the universe will throw another one out there. In other words, see how good you're doing. See if you can handle this one. Well, he was taking off out of on Lufthansa. I want to say Warsaw. Munich. He was coming out of Munich. That's what it was. And it hadn't been long after they took off, and he was filming the takeoff. And in the field of view goes something went by, and it startled him, to say the least. And he thought it might have been a drone. So he called it to the attention of the flight attendant on the airplane, which is a pretty responsible thing to do. And the captain was interested enough that he actually came down a little bit later in flight, asked him to look at the video, and he actually transferred the video to the captain's cell phone. So they got a record of that. And so he and I had a bit of a dialogue then, private dialogue about that. And Eric and I were talking about that beforehand, about what is the threat of drones out there. I mean, when you look at the war in the Ukraine, holy crap, they're flying those guys right up their nose, with a small grenade-sized weapon, and they're just devastating. But assuming no one's trying to do that to commercial aviation, somewhere, what is the challenge? The challenge to that? You want to talk about that? You had an experience where you had somebody in a jump seat, right here.
Yeah, well, I just in the loosest of terms, because I can't give people numbers or quantify things. So we were coming back out of DCA, which is ordinarily stressful because a lot of airplanes in a small space with a lot of restricted airspace, and an FAA guy wanted to ride with us, and we thought, oh boy, all right, we got to be screwed down pretty tight all the way back. But the FAA guy got on and he was so fascinating. I hardly remember flying to Phoenix. And he was a guy charged with the FAA promulgating their first set of regulations and how they were going to certify drone pilots, regulate them, what they were going to do. And they were literally in the process of brainstorming what it was they were going to try and put a fence around, how they could get a grip on the whole aspect of drone flying. And this is, for me, it was, I don't know, 2018 or something like that. And so it was just fascinating to listen to the guy talk about it. And they had mock-ups of drones that they were flying into the airplane, their model airplane and all that kind of stuff, which wasn't really ending all that well. And so they were very serious about the drone regulations, and it was the absolute tip of the spear. And Tom, to give him credit, could probably speak about that because he has a US FAA drone operators license that he got, and I don't know when he got it. So he was probably one of the early guys to be a licensed drone operator, or I think remote vehicle or UA vehicle. I forget how it is in the license, but he recognizes one two out of three times. So I give him a little more credence when he says he wondered what that was going by out the window. And it's still a worrisome thing, and in its infancy of trying to keep that separated from airplanes. And so far it's worked out fairly well.
And I would say that more people are more and more informed than they were. I mean, we first started talking about this 10 years ago, right? You know, and it was like the lasers, shooting lasers in the cockpit and stuff like that. So the word's gotten out, and you know, and it kind of shifts the population slowly and all that. So I'm less concerned about it. And I think that drones are you can fly a drone up 400 feet, something like that, without having a permit or whatnot for that. So we'll just keep our fingers crossed and hope for the best, that people do mind their P's and Q's, and the word continues to get out there. All right, so we want to shift gears. We want to talk about something that we the last coaching session for any of you in the ongoing Clear for Takeoff 201 class. We're there or have watched the replay from last Thursday night. We talked about really, it's something that has really come to the forefront of my attention. It really is the issue for if you're afraid to fly. And that is the obsessive compulsive thinking that goes on, that you just, no matter how much you know about flying, and you've heard us talk about, or heard people say, I'm not worried about, the airplane crashing. I just can't fathom the idea of being stuck in that seat if I want to get off. And our retort to that is, why would you want to get off? Okay, so that still bears why you should take the 201 course or some equivalent, because you need to know how airplanes operate. You need a bigger battery of information, a bigger database of information, so that you can combat some of those myths that you have otherwise out there. And if nothing else, you can just shore up that ambiguous fear or worry that something is going to happen and you'll want to get off the airplane. It just doesn't happen. And the reason it doesn't is because the way we manage risk. All right. And so we're talking about right now, the only term we could come up with that seems to make sense is segmentation. And I mentioned we have one of our followers and in my elite coaching students, Allie Anderson, when she went on her flight, and I mean, I thought about this from time to time, but nobody has implemented it to the extent that Allie did. She made up a schedule. She asked me, how long is the flight, Ron? And I said, 4 hours. How long is it, until we get airborne? I gave her a number. How long when we get airborne until we're, in the climb, until we get to cruise? So she went through, and if she didn't know exactly what each segment was, because when you get in the cruise, it's pretty much straight and level up there, she just divided it into 20-minute chunks. And each segment, she had a list of activities, and it might be mindfulness based. It might be tactile, something that you do with your hands. It might be a puzzle that you do. It might be, doing the numbers game, whatever. But anyway, so we're working on a new tool that's going to make use of that. And when you talk about, if you ask Eric and I, or anybody for that matter, but when we wanted to become pilots, if we tried to do it on our own, it was an overwhelming task. So we went to people who had segmented it that way, and thank God we weren't in Orville and Wilbur's shoes, because they didn't have anybody to do that for them in advance. But, we're in 119 years after they made their first flight, and that's not the case anymore. And I've often found that there's a lot of transferability between some of the practices that we use in aviation to learn how to fly, to teach people how to learn how to ride and be a passenger back there. And so we've been talking about this, and somebody then came up with I can't remember where. Oh, I know. I read a book, and I'm trying to get the author on here. She wrote a book about this, and she mentioned something that both Dieter and I had been aware of, but had forgotten about. This is an event in 2019, and just picture in your mind's eye that you're for whatever reason you want to set the world's record for jumping out of an airplane without a parachute, and go on record to do that and survive. Okay, I mean, my hands are soaking wet just saying those very words. And so I found the video, and I found the write-up from the fella. The guy was 42 years old when he accomplished this in 2019. He had been parachuting, free falling since he was 16 years old, and he had over 18,000 jumps. So I'm gonna share my screen here, and I'm just gonna highlight some of this. We won't go through the whole thing. We can put the website into the okay. Make sure that we can see that. Can we see that, guys?
Yes.
Okay, cool. So if we're talking about segmenting and planning, much more in much greater detail, the actual flight that you're going to take on, you can see that, the problem with most people is they get on, they might even take the course, they might do a coaching session, or they might just show up at the airplane. And there's this belief that, oh, I can't do anything. And you hear that I've tried everything. And and you want to say, really, you've tried everything? And that turns out not to be true. Tony Robbins does a big thing on that. When he hears people say, I've tried everything, really, you've tried everything. So this is our push to show you how you can accomplish some amazing things, even overcoming your fear of flying on an airplane, by breaking it down into segments and figuring out what the risks are. That's the way we make flying safe. And so you'll see in the picture there, the guy in the green there he's the guy that's going for the record. And a couple of things that they showed earlier, the challenges for him. First of all, was hitting the doggone net. He's got a net at the bottom of this thing, and you'll see it towards the end here. And it's one thing to jump out of something, but he can't just land anywhere in the state of Kansas. He's got to hit that net down there. And when you read the background, the literature on this, you find out to what length they went, the engineering that they did, and they how the net had to be structured, and it had to have it had to give so that it could absorb it. If somebody throws you an egg, you can't just put your hand up like a catcher's mitt and catch the egg, because it'll break. So you have to receive it like this and and kind of recoil. So they needed that in the net there. And then one of the things, and this is where I'm going in case you get lost along the way, because they use something in aviation that Eric and I used every day, virtually, when we're flying multiple times. The problem was, how is he going to know that he's going to hit the net? Because you can look down and eventually you'll see that he could see the net, but he didn't know. How does he know whether he's on track? And so they use something called VASI, which is a mechanism. Approach
slope indicator.
Yep. And it's either 2 banks of lights, or sometimes 3 banks of lights, or sometimes 4 banks of light, because it depends on the size of the airplane. And we'll show the picture that here in a minute. But anyway, so these guys jumped out. First thing they had to do is he had to have oxygen, because they jumped out at 25,000 feet, and he would, otherwise he would have passed out before he got to the point where he could hit the net. And so he had an oxygen bottle, a portable one he was carrying. And so the first thing they did is they had to choreograph an exchange. And the guy that's closest to him comes over and he grabs the bottle. I mean, it's just really amazing. Let me, okay. I'll let it run live here a little bit and we'll just watch it all. Okay, so there, now you can see the view. Look at, I mean, there's mountains and hills all around there too. Not that it would matter whether you hit the flat spot in the desert or, you know, and you got to go over to this link to just look at the comments on the video. Oh my God, there are some hilarious comments that people put there. But anyway, so here is the larger area, and this is the net that he's aiming at right there. And so you can imagine, just jumping out of the airplane, as I mentioned before, doesn't guarantee that you're going to hit the net. So, you know, and you could be, I mean, you could be looking at it, but to exaggerate, if you're coming in at a 45-degree angle like that, or it looks like you ain't going to make the net, you're going to be a splot somewhere short of that. So they use this same system that the airlines did, and that's where Eric and I got all excited about, so that he could keep that red over white, and I'll play the rest of it here as he plummets. This is plummeting, by the way.
Plummet.
Yeah. So there goes one of the guys. There goes the other guy. Not that they could help him at that point, but he is totally on his own. I am telling you. I mean, my hands are totally soaked. I cannot watch this without that. And here he comes. And oops.
I see the center target. Did you pick up the VASI?
I could not see it. I was gonna let me go back just a little bit. I was trying to stop it right there.
See the VASI.
So this may be it right there. You know, it would make sense if he had 4 white beacons around it with a red in the area. Because if he got off, then probably one of the anyway, for those of you wanting to know what the hell Eric and I are talking about, you see this area right in the middle, and I couldn't find any detail on that. But basically, what this does is they had it shining straight up so that he could tell when he was outside of that cone, if you will. And so what he would do, he would just keep flying like we do when we're landing. You keep the white over the red, no, the red over the white, right? Yeah, just right. Yeah, okay. And so anyway, so that's what he did. And we'll just go down here and watch him as he gets close. I mean, this staggers my imagination. And you can see he had a camera on, so that's when he flipped right at the end. And it's really cool. And they'll reproduce it here a couple of times. He's obviously very happy about the output there. Yeah.
Unbelievable.
Yeah. And he walks off. 25,000 feet. I mean, that's probably a minute and a half, 2 minutes, something like that. Peak velocity was 120.
Terminal velocity had a good skydive with about 20. Yeah.
Okay, so that was kind of cool. And
I did that just for a minute, and that was enough.
Oh my God! Yeah.
Tell everybody, it's a disclaimer: we do not offer plummeting like that as a therapy or an option for you if you no longer wish to remain in the airplane. We don't offer that. Let you know right now.
If you do ever want to skydive, though, I will tell. I've done it, and it is a lot of fun.
Oh yeah. Yeah, you don't have to worry about going to sleep or getting bored under those circumstances. Yeah. So you can see the VASI, right, guys? Okay.
Yes.
So leave it to Eric and I to figure out how to tie something into aviation. So this is what we're at. So when I read that, I thought, well, this is a pretty good thing, because, and not that everybody asks us a lot of questions about this, but you know, when you're landing an airplane on the runway, you likewise have to know where the airplane is headed versus where you think you're headed. Because I could look out the window and I could be dragging the dirt with the wheels but still looking at the touchdown zone at the airport. And we don't want that. We want to come in at a nice glide path. You can see this, the typical visual approach to an airport is around 3 degrees or 4.5 degrees, something like that. And we call it the just right. And there's a series of projectors here. One is white and the other is red. And once again, red over white. If you see a red one on the top and the white one on the bottom, we say red over white, just right. If it goes red over red, you're dead. And that means that you're coming in too low. And then if you have white over white, you're too high as well. But that's what it looks like. And I don't think that this has a, let me see if I can sort through here. I wanted to show what it looks like actually. Yeah, okay, here we go. This isn't a great picture. This is a simulator with a light airplane. And it's kind of, but you can see the red is a little bit obscured by the white, but there's a faint red light on top, and then there's a white one there. So that's the red over white, just right. And that's what it looks like. And these guys know that not only is the airplane coming down approaching the runway, but it is approaching it at a glide path that is the way the performance of the airplane is rated for. So it's not just us arbitrarily wanting to come down at towards the runway. It's us traveling on a finite line to the runway, because all of our performance, like takeoff performance, go around performance, all that is based on the angle at which we approach the runway.
And Ron, let me throw in.
Yeah.
I should have checked the exact numbers earlier, but it's jumping into my brain. Let's say you were doing this at night and it's dark. Well, some unpleasant person might have put trees, obstacles, that sort of thing in front of the runway. And if you were on that visual glide slope, if it's dark and you can see nothing but the runway in front of you, that gives you obstacle clearance protection, I think out to 4 statute miles and 10 to 18 degrees either side of the runway. So that if you're on the VASI, that guarantees you getting over any obstacle between that lateral distance in the runway. So it's especially important at night not to take liberties with that when you can't see the obstacles. Example being San Diego in the parking garage.
Yeah, I was just going to say, and it becomes really relevant in San Diego. Yeah, because of the fact that they built that big old parking garage out there. So anyway, all right. So back, the whole point of that was to show you how you can take something very complex, like being afraid to fly, something relatively abstract, like being afraid to fly, and you can break it down and you can come up with things to do, things to say, things to listen to, things to compute, Sudoku, a variety of things. And that's what the next emphasis, the next shift for us at Fearless Flight is going to be. We're going to come up with hopefully some very detailed methods and tools so that you all can build your own flight plans, because they can all be custom tailored. Not everybody, benefits from the Fearless Flight Harmonizer at a given point. Not everybody can do Sudoku when we do that, but you've all got something that can be more interesting. Because remember, the issue is your attention has said that anything else that you were doing is no longer interesting to me. What's interesting to me is obsessing over the fact that they closed the door and I can't get off of this stupid thing. Or what's interesting to me is I can't quit thinking about turbulence and how miserable I am and how much I'm worried about having a panic attack. Okay. The cure to any fear of flying, to any phobia really is being able to take your attention and get it back from whoever hijacked it or whatever hijacked it. And in order to do that, you've got to come up with something that's more interesting to you. And you've got to do that in advance. If you wait until you get on the airplane, then when you call me up or you talk to one of us, you're going to say, I tried everything, nothing works. And we're going to say, no, not so fast. So anyway, any comments or anything, Dieter?
Yeah, there's one question here. Shali is asking, is there any danger when the engine paneling blows off while in flight? And I guess that was in the news today. There was the Alaska Air flight.
I wonder why that comes up.
From San Diego.
Yeah.
And so Eric, do you want to jump in on that?
Well, the short answer to that, and the part they're interested in, is no. It's certainly shocking looking and makes some airplane vibration, but no. But the danger is to somebody on the ground reading Mad Magazine, sunbathing, if they get whacked with a cowl when it lands on the ground. But to the people in the airplane, no, there's no hazard at all.
And you may remember last year we talked a lot about the 777 that took off out of Denver and they had a catastrophic failure of one of the compressor blades, and it caused the cowl to separate. And so that not only were the people looking at the guts of the engine, but they were looking at fire out there because it was quite attention getting. And so that's another example of losing the part of the protective covering. And basically they only cover the airplane and make it look pretty so that it goes through the air with the greatest of ease, and so it does affect the drag on the airplane is somewhat and all that, but unfortunate is it's certainly a too sensitive or gentle of an adjective to describe that, but because losing the cowl would not be something you would want, but even so, you can see that was an Alaska airliner, right, Eric, earlier in the week or something.
I think so. Yeah, they've had a tough week over there.
Yeah. So what can we say? Things like that happen, and you don't read about a tragedy where everybody perished or anything like that. You read about the fact that, it's embarrassing for the airline and may be embarrassing for somebody who may have not fastened a fastener as well, or it may have been a failure of some material that failed. But the one thing you can count on, which you can't say for auto safety, is it won't happen again, at least not that specific cause, because they'll figure it out forensically and they'll fix it. So, all right. Let's see. Well, I think that's all we had on the agenda tonight. Hope you found it interesting and informative, and we're going to close up shop again this week. Thanks, Dieter. Thanks, Diane. Thanks, Eric. And Pete, please get out there. And if you have any interest at all in flying with us on to either out of Phoenix here, we're going to Burbank, or out of Burbank, out of the LA area, where we're going from Burbank to Sacramento again, please consider taking the link and registering for Clear for Takeoff 301. So,
Ron, let me just answer Mercier's question here, because it pertains exactly to the 301 class. Mercier, you're saying, how do I get to the place where we're directed to actually buying the ticket? So once you purchase the tuition for the 301 course, you'll also get an email and access to the portal. And depending on which flight you would like to go on, either the one out of Phoenix or the one out of Burbank, the information is in that portal. And if you need any more help, just email us at captainron@fearlessflight.com, or just message us here on Facebook.
And Dieter's going to all the trouble of, as he said, it's a sequence. And once you get in the sequence, everything, you'll be led through it, including if you want to bring somebody with you as a coach or your partner. So again, we're hoping for it. It's fun. I cannot emphasize how enjoyable it is for not only us, but for you all out there. And you see people within 15 minutes of flight getting airborne say, I can't believe I waited this long. So don't wait any longer. Take advantage of this. And we're hoping to see as many of you as possible on October 15th, and then the following week, October 22nd. All right. So thanks, everybody. We'll be back again next week with another episode of Fearless Flight Live. So have a great week, everybody, and stay safe.